Hi, this is Lindsay Sparks and Denise Yoakum's presentation on the symbolic interactionism theory and the impact it has on the family studies. So there are 4 different scholars that have to do with this theory. And as you've probably noticed as you've read, it's a little bit abstract and pretty complex. So I'm going to try to explain it the best I can to give you a really good idea of what this theory is all about. So this scholar, Herbert Mead, his primary contribution is of the self. So it's belief that the individuals learn about themselves through interactions with others. So you're developing your own sense of self, and his generalized other is recognizing that our behaviors affect society as a whole and not just the people who are immediately around us. This is where we develop understanding of things like social norms and expectations. As we go through and develop this sense of self with immediately, and the individuals around us immediately, like friends and family members, but then also society as a whole, developing those norms with that sense of who am I. We are constantly moving towards behaviors of like I and me. So I being like the behaviors that really talk about like you as an individual. Your behaviors would be really unpredictable, whereas the me is interacting with others, so your social self. So the things that you would do in public is not something you would necessarily do in private. So for example, you wouldn't talk about really intimate or personal things in public, whereas in private with someone close to you, you would. Charles Cooley is best known for his contribution of the looking glass self, meaning that you're developing your sense of self, but how others perceive you or how you think others perceive you. So me as a little angel, my girlfriend sees me as someone who's strong. You can see kind of the muscles drawn there. My older brother sees me as a weakling. My ex-girlfriend sees me as the devil. So you know how other people perceive you. As you develop your sense of self, you take those things into account. William Isaac Thomas is known to have originated the study of symbolic interaction with the book The Polished Peasant in Europe and America. His major contribution is the definition of the situation. It means that everyone has their own reality when involved with the same event. Like, for example, you see someone drinking at a party. Some people might contribute that, oh, they're just drinking, an alcoholic drink. They're just having fun. Whereas like other people would say that's really immature or irresponsible type of behavior. So even the same event, people will have their own realities based on that same event. So Buruzia has the 3 overarching themes for this theory, and he talks about the first overarching theme is that people will react to something according to the meaning that thing has for them, and we learn about meaning through interaction with others and experiences that we have. So he gave the example of the cigarette in the book. He talked about how a cigarette, an object, will for some people be something of relief or stress reducer, whereas a cigarette for someone else is like, oh, gross, cancer stick, like evil. And so it really depends on what your experiences have been with them and how you with that object. A second overarching theme is that the human infant is antisocial, meaning they don't have a concept of self, which we talked about earlier. Developing that concept of self through developing this, we're able to have interactions with other people. So since an infant hasn't had those type of interactions, they don't have a sense of self, according to this theory. Once they develop the sense of self, it'll be motivation for future behavior, meaning that people will have experiences and behaviors that will either be rewarded or punished, and you would make future decisions based on how your behaviors have been reported in the past. You also see yourselves as your own being, but how others perceive you, kind of like that looking glass thing, which is kind of an example here. So this kid, those people around him probably are viewing him as sad, whereas he could think that he's tired, but he might also perceive that others might see him as sad since he looks, droopy and down. So the third overarching theme is that individuals are influenced by society. They're influenced by their culture. There's cultural norms and values in that society and things like that. And as we consider, thinking is a really big part, like cognitive thought is a really important part of this theory, because it modifies your interpretation of the symbols. So as at one point you might think, oh, cigarette, cancer stick, but then someone tries a cigarette and it starts becoming something different for them, towards the more relief or stress reliever versus what it might have been for them. So some symbols will develop over time and they will change depending on the culture that you're in. If someone moves from the United States to France, different things will have a different interpretation based on the culture and the social norms and things like that. So depending on where you're at in that stage of life, different things will have different meaning to you over the course of your life. The role of culture is really important. I talked about this a little bit before with like how culture really takes an effect of how we see things. For example, in American culture, there's a lot of negative connotations with mental health issues and things like that. And many times it leads us to label or stereotype others because of how, the culture as a whole views people. And this is kind of some examples, of different people who are feeling like they are being stereotyped. There are a lot of critiques that go along with this theory. It's difficult to define and really difficult to test. There's not a central theory, so you can't just say this theory is blank because it's pretty abstract. There's a lot of emphasis on creating your own reality when we live in a world that we don't create ourselves. So there's a lot of interpretation that is, per person basis upon creating your own quote unquote reality when we didn't create this world. And lack of attention to biology, meaning that there's no emphasis on genes or DNA, and other critiques that, it grows and changes with the time. So you can't always, oh, this isn't wrong, but you can say, oh, it's grown or it's changed because of thinking or time or, things like that. And another critique is that we're all social beings and playing roles and learning from each other, that's just a part of life. So this is just a little silly example of a couple of creatures here having a symbolic interactionism. They both have these thought bubbles outside, but their conversation is just, when's the next bus leave in about 5 minutes. So I hope that this has been able to walk you through this theory a little bit more and been able to give you a better idea of what this theory really entails and how everything kind of goes together. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this will help you in your studies.